My guest today is Caroline Banks, London-based artist. After my conversation with Caroline, it is safe to say that I'll never look at Circle quite the same way again. I had assumed that her fascination was related to source energy somehow, but was surprised to learn about how she became interested in circles. An experience of loss of a loved one in 2012. We talked about how everything is energy. As we talked, I started to realize that Caroline is not necessarily depicting anything in her circles. She aims to capture rather than depict. We talked about how the weaver completes the artwork as well as her time in India, which was very transformative for her. Finally, we talk about how creativity is essential for everybody's well-being and how taking light-hearted, playful approach to art might help make it more accessible to others. So we jumped in now as Caroline and I start our conversation talking about the meaning of memory of gesture in her work. You capture the essence of an experience in your work in a meditative state. Imagine you draw a circle with your brush, and that brush stroke expresses a moment when the mind is free to let the body create. Is that what you mean by memory of gesture?
To a certain extent, because when you say I record and I aim to record a moment, so I am recording that particular moment in time, those few seconds of my own experience. However, I have a deep belief that everything, all of us in the universe are connected. So something from my experience will be echoing out to other people. And the circle is the most fundamental shape, again, in our world, in science, in nature, in culture, wherever you are. We are commonly joined by the circle. So
that's very fascinating. The circle. I'm gonna have a question.
Yeah, it is an obsession. But it's I believe it's within our DNA. Well, it is within our DNA. I mean, it actually is. But to me, it is an essential part of everything.
That's very interesting. But before we jump to the circle, because I am very interested talking about.
Yeah, sorry, I tend to go straight.
Oh, no, it's okay.
Sorry, the other thing about your question, because I didn't quite answer it, sort of the gesture, the memory of the gesture is also the energy of that gesture. And gestures are transient. They are not something you can capture. They disappear as soon as they've happened. And I want to capture something within that, because the energy that's been produced and it's been transmitted through that gesture is eternal. Even though we can't see it, we can't feel it necessarily, it's there and it's happened. So I suppose it's that thing that it's hugely important, but we can't quite grasp it.
That's fascinating to me. So, because for me, when I go to a meditative state, I just start to be in the zone or just see how I feel, and then I bring that to my work. But just capturing that energy, it's very interesting. I never think about that way.
Because I'm not, I suppose I don't see it as capturing it. I see it as transmitting, because in the sense I have received it and then I'm giving it back to the work, and hopefully the work will then give it back to the viewer. So it's this transference of energy, and there is something completely, it's a silent language in a way. It can't be verbalized. I cannot verbalize. If I could verbalize it, I wouldn't be doing it. I wouldn't be making it, because I'd be able to talk about it in a way that would be sufficient. But because I can't actually put it into words, I'm constantly trying to transmit that kind of information.
That does make sense, because it's not really comes to the word, because every vocabulary we use to express that or explain that, it's like it's not enough.
Yeah, and I mean, there is a lot that cannot be expressed in words.
I'm gonna try this.
Well, you'll be doing it with your artwork.
I know, but I never brought awareness to that.
And again, it links, and as I say, everything from, you know, the microcosmic to the astronomical is connected. And the only thing in this universe that actually really, really, really exists is energy.
Yeah.
So I'm fascinated with string theory, with quantum mechanics. We don't understand it. It's there, but we don't understand it. But that doesn't mean we can't find it completely magical and wonderful. And the thought that I'm just this, you know, mass of pulsating atoms whipping around all the time, and that what I think is reality is not solid, and that what is life and what is death is almost interchangeable in some way. You can't have one without the other.
Exactly.
So I just find all that completely fascinating.
Yeah, it's come to the circle, because circle has no end, has no beginning. There is life and death and everything in the middle of it.
Completely, yeah, completely. So that's why it all connects up, and there are different. I'm exploring lots of different aspects. And I suppose, well, a lot of my work is led by curiosity. It's like, well, what would happen if, you know, or how could that work? Or how does that feel? And it's all questions. I don't have any answers. It's all just questions.
I love that. So circle, you describe circle that is a fundamental shape in nature, representing interconnectedness in everything.
Everything. You find it, every single culture. The first actually human-made habitation that I've been able to find was actually made in a circle. That still shows through in early habitations in all kinds of cultures now. The initial creation is circular. The shape that we make with our body, I've just been doing some body drawings, and so that's something I'm wanting to develop a bit more. But the biggest shape we can make using our bodies is a circle, actually using our bodies. So if you stretch your arm out and you just go round, well, you go round. If you spin around, you're going around.
Yeah.
You know, our arms are the diameter of the circle. It's, you know, we see the world. I was at Lee Krasner saying, you know, we view the world through a circle, through our eyes, circles. It's the kind of thing that once you think about it, you think, oh, everywhere, you know, atoms, planets, orbiting planets. It's all circular. It's, you know, the most efficient form, the strongest form, circular.
It's just. I was walking before this interview, and I was just thinking to see how am I going to see everything in circle. Like I feel like with nature is easier, but like with what we create, like a table.
Yeah, I actually always hit myself on corners of things, so I need rounded edges in my house because I'm always knocking into things. Because actually, I don't think I can walk in a straight line, because we're all, you know, if you think you're walking in a straight line, eventually you're walking in a circle. Because A, one side of our bodies is stronger than the other, and B, we are actually following the rotation of the Earth to a certain extent as well. It's spooky.
I'm gonna bring awareness to that. So when I'm walking, I'm gonna watch myself and see how I feel. It's interesting.
It's I've not done it, but apparently, you know, for example, people when they're lost and they go, you know, they try and find where they're going, or they, you know, they say, right, we'll just walk this way. Unless you've got something like the sun or the moon, or, you know, something to guide you, you are going to walk, eventually have walked in a big circle. It's just what we do.
Yeah, I need to process that because I never thought about it that way. That's interesting. It is actually very interesting in Heart Sutra in Zen Buddhism, circle is a state that form is empty and emptiness is form. So everything, it doesn't mean nothingness, but it means that everything created from that, even this duality of feminine and masculine, or everything that night, day. And I want to try to understand that. I know the concept, but so this form of circle, this obsession with the circle, is it somehow coming from to understand the whole, the source energy? I don't know how to call it, because whatever I put the name on it, it
isn't. Yeah,
it isn't.
It's actually started when my mother was terminally ill, and I knew she was going to die within months. And I was working. I was working freelance, and so I actually cut down on any new projects, and I just kept one project going, which was enough for me to survive on. And I started drawing circles, discs. I started something similar. Hang on, oh, I'll show you a piece. This isn't the one, but this is similar to a piece that I had brought back from China that I actually had, because we find them a lot in jewelry as well. So you see, it's a disc.
Is it metal?
No, it's stone.
It's stone.
It's this one is lapis lazuli. So, but not pure, it's just a mixture. And this I brought back from Chile. But I hadn't, you know, it had been in a drawer, I hadn't really thought about it. And then I saw an article about these discs that had been found in Neolithic burial sites in the west of China. And they were that shape. They were these discs, and they were made from nephrite, and jade, nephrite, has got massive associations with eternal life, purity in China. And the point was that these were found in graves, and they would have like a big one that was laid on the chest of the deceased. So they knew these things were really, really important, but we still don't know what they mean. And that really connected with that idea of death and life and the unknown. And that I just felt some kind of real resonance with that, and my mother leaving me. And the fact that she was going somewhere else, we don't know. Nobody knows. But she was moving from one state to another. But the fact she was going to go. So it was this, I don't know, it was just something really, really powerful for me. And I was just obsessed with just drawing these things. I mean, you can see actually the ones behind me are actually that these are a recent development, but I'm actually going back to some ideas that came soon after, well, a couple of years after I started doing them, because I started doing these in 2012. Yeah, she died in 2012. And there was something very soothing about it. And there was something very soothing in the act of, again, of drawing and making this rounded shape, just in the way that, yeah, it felt very natural and very comfortable, and very kind, actually, as well, very soothing. And then I started, I've done a lot of pen and ink work, which I just really enjoy doing. And so I started making these sort of circles, but not quite complete ones, so the gesture of the circle. And then I found out that it was something that I hadn't been very aware of. Well, I must have seen it somewhere, but I hadn't really connected with me until that point. It was the Enso, the Zen gesture, which is a very meditative gesture. And it's true, it's a very meditative gesture. And I'd been making these without that knowledge, or without that conscious knowledge. And then I started reading about, I read the Tao, and I was reading more about Buddhism, but I had already been exposed to Buddhism in my time in India. So things were sort of falling into place. I kept finding all these connections. And it was just something I just had to do, and was getting obsessive. And it was like, people were seeing the work and said, oh, well, that's like an, the eye, that's like the pupil, that's like the iris, that's like seeing the earth from above, that's like, geography, that's like, and people kept seeing all these different things that I hadn't really thought about. And then I kept seeing these, again, connections. So it was interesting, but I didn't quite know. I mean, I still don't really know where it came from, if I'm honest.
Maybe that's because everything is connected. So you needed that in that moment with your mom.
Yeah.
I saw your Bai series, and I get interested. What's that mean by? And I read
that's
about
the
it.
Chinese disc, yes.
Yeah, and then when I read about it more, that they put in the grave, and it's just some sort of connection between this estate and another estate.
Yeah, it could be. I mean, they think it's to do with the sky and the spirit, but they don't really know.
Yeah.
And then I was looking back through an exhibition catalogue from, I don't know, 30 years ago or something, where they'd actually exhibited a jade suit that was put on a body in a similar idea, sort of mummification and everything. But what was really interesting, because they actually had stoppers for all the orifices. So they had stoppers for the nostrils, stoppers for the ears. So the whole body was sealed up. But at the very top of the head, they had a little disc and a hole. And was that for the soul to escape? I don't know. But that was the only bit that was actually open. Every single orifice in the body had stoppers, but there was a disc at the top, a pierced disc at the top.
Yeah.
And it was like, why? And it's partly with the death and the life, and I just find it quite strange.
Yeah, people do energy healings. I was reading about it, that from the sage, from the crown, that you can connect with the source or the energy from there. It can be, it's kind of energy that connect everything together. Because as you said, we are all energy. Yeah.
We are all energy. And the point is that that's sort of, there's the mystical side of it, and the hippy dippy side of it and all that. But it is actually science. It's like the science has confirmed that we are energy. Everything around us is energy, and energy itself is indestructible. So does that mean that life is indestructible? Don't know. What happens? I mean, obviously the matter, the body goes, the person goes, but the energy is somewhere. Perhaps it just goes into the universe and then gets recycled again, another circular thing. because there aren't lots of, you know, what happens, we are nothing for billions and billions and billions of years, and then we're born for a fraction, and we're sentient, and then we die. But what happens to that? And then we just disappear again. So depending on what one's beliefs are. But I do think there's something in that whole sort of recycling, connecting, transference of energy itself, which we know is the core to all life. So
yeah, I have similar point of view regarding to that. I feel the other people's energy. If they have some sort of emotion, I can feel that, or I can, when I get in touch with nature, I can feel that nature. It's, everybody has that. It's just how much you're aware of it.
Some people, I think, are quite tuned in to the energy thing, but I know for me, you know, and I'm sure you've experienced this as well, and I'm sure everybody has, you know, you walk into a place and you can sense the atmosphere.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, when they say you could cut the atmosphere with a knife, or you go somewhere and you think, you know, like people who've been to places where terrible, terrible things have happened, you know, you really can feel this sort of an energy force there. And in the same way that any place of worship, you can feel that a lot of people have put a lot of energy into that place. So there are variations within that. And I know when the first place I actually bought, well, you know, to live in, it was a mess. But I knew when I walked in, I thought, I can be happy here. There was an energy there, and I just felt it. And it's not, I know it's not just me. It's not just me.
You can sense that. So it's, how do we sense that? It's energy. And yeah. Also in the circle is an energy that is different from other form, because it's like a wheel. It's always in motion. And it's not something that there is no stock energy, or there is no block, because the energy can get stuck somewhere. Or some other form can, like line can has a different kind of energy, like a structure. And I'm wondering, in your work, when you have a full circle, so this energy is in motion. I'm just wondering, I'm not even sure. But if your brush stroke somewhere end before this circle completed, so is it looking for a solution, or is it is about a structure? What happened? I'm just curious to know, because not all of your work is full circle.
No, there are various ways in which I can talk about. There are some very prosaic ways. For example, the ink may have run out by the time I get round to the end. So that's one possibility. There's also the thing in calligraphy. I mean, I haven't done Chinese, I've actually done a bit of Japanese calligraphy, which in fact has come from China originally. And it's where the teacher was saying, when you're lifting the brush, you're not, you know, it's taking off like a plane. So it's not like a straightforward thing. It's a sweeping gesture. So you're actually carrying that circle on. It's just not on that surface. Or you're carrying that gesture on, but it's not necessarily on, it's still there. It's just not on that surface. And in the same way that, for example, radar, you get the signal, but the more time has elapsed, the fainter it gets. And then it's almost disappeared, and then it starts again. So it's that, again, that thing of time moving and running, not running out, but things fading over a period of time. And that's where it connects as well to the idea of memory, that, you know, at the beginning, it's really, really strong and powerful. And then with time, it fades and it fragments. So sometimes it won't get to the completion of the circle because it's actually just disappeared. Does that make sense?
That does make sense. Yeah.
So all those sort of connections, all those thoughts that that all the resonances. I use the word resonance a lot because it's not things. It's things that connect with each other, things that echo each other. So yeah, there are all those associations.
So you mentioned memory. You also, in your By series, you said you're exploring the mystery of memory and evoking a meditation on the passage of time.
Yeah.
What does really memory is? Is it your own memory? Is it also experiencing of collective memory? What is it really?
Well, for one thing, it's actually very often inaccurate. we think we remember things, but a lot of the time what we believe we've remembered is actually not what necessarily happened. But then you're almost going to that thing that's very much about now is, it's my truth, it's my memory. And actually it's your own memory, but it doesn't mean it's an accurate memory, but that doesn't make it any less important. So it's very important, or it can be very important and incredibly precious. And that's also why I began using gilding, because it's something very precious, but it's actually not stable. And it can change over time as well. We forget certain details or things, or we can forget something completely, but that doesn't mean it hasn't happened. It's a traitor a lot of the time as well. But that doesn't mean it's not important. It's still really, really precious. And, if everything else goes and we still have our memories, because it's, a lot of the time at the moment, particularly, we can't travel, we can't go out and do lots of things. And I'm thinking, I don't know if I'm ever going to be able to travel much again. And obviously with the environmental implications of travel, probably travel will become the privilege of the wealthy again, in the way that it was in the past. Because it may be something I won't be able to do very much. But I've got memories of all the traveling and all the experiences I've already had. So they're very important. And it doesn't really matter if I don't remember exactly, but they're still really important to me. And I got them. And unless my memory starts going, as in I become ill, I have some form of dementia, and then you find out what things are remembered and what things are not remembered. It's something that we have.
So memory is not just the memory, the word memory is even every feeling, every sensation, everything that comes with that memory.
Yeah.
I understand that.
And people will say, for example, they'll see a piece of my work, and very often people say, tell me about it. And I'll turn it around and I'll say, well, what do you see? Because my memory is my own. But they will have associations themselves, and then it takes on their meaning, a meaning for them.
Yeah, I saw one of your work. It felt like it's a universe. It's like there was a circle and there was, I can't remember the name of that piece, but a lot of dots on it. And for me, it felt like I want to go into that space, be one with whatever is going on there. It felt for me that way, that I want to be part of this, whatever is going on in this. So yeah.
I mean, I'm a great believer that the viewer completes the artwork. I mean, I can put what I want into it, but once it's out there, it doesn't belong to me anymore. It's really for whatever people see in it. And whatever they see in it, that's absolutely, completely valid. I'm not going to say, no, that's not it at all. It's another association.
Exactly. Even though if you explain about your work. But if you just take that explanation away and just give that image to the viewer, what they feel is accurate. If you just give them information, maybe their mind gonna think that, where am I seeing this, or why I'm not seeing that? But that's not about that. This is how you experience, or that's what it means to you, but it doesn't necessarily mean to others.
Yeah, and it's I mean, when I've done, because I used to in the olden days, pre-pandemic, I used to do a lot of art fairs, and I will start doing them again. And you know, people would come up to me and they say, "Oh, I know nothing about art. I know nothing about." I said, "Yeah, but how does it make you feel?" Well, yeah, I like that, and it's like, well, that's all you need. Oh, I don't know why I like it, but I do. So, well, that's enough.
I like
because
that.
it's got to get you. It's got to get you. For me, the way it has to have some emotional connection with the person, for them to feel something, and what they feel. Then, if they would like to learn more about it, then I'm very happy to talk about it. It just expands what they have, but it will never take away that initial, what they feel, that initial emotion, that initial hit that they've had. It's just enlarging and developing what, I mean, it's learning, really. It's expanding what they already have. Because I don't want people to think, oh, well, I should be thinking this or I should be thinking that. It's like, no. What you're feeling and what you're thinking is fine. There are also these other connections. And then they'll say, oh yeah, I get that. And it's, but it's if that's happened, then I've done my job.
I like the word expanding.
Yeah.
I want to go back to India. I know you were in China, Vietnam, and India for a while. But my question is, I want to know, what was your experience working on a wild seed project, or another experience that you had that is interesting or it was new to you? Is there anything you can share?
Well, one of the big things I learned is how little control we actually have. We think we can control things. And in the West, I think we're very much, trains arrive, electricity works, water can be drunk from the tap. If we get sick, we can go to a hospital. If we need some food, you can get it from a shop. In India, the initial reason for me going was to work for an NGO, and the Wild Silk Project was basically a microfinance thing for Adivasi, so tribal people, and also the very lowest levels economically of the society, where they would fantasize about having 2 meals a day. That was a dream, because there just wasn't enough money for that. They couldn't, or they couldn't farm enough, or they just didn't have the cash to be able to, in fact, have enough food. If somebody fell sick, well, it's either the local witch doctor, or you might try a local doctor if you could afford it, but very often you couldn't. So it was very, very basic stuff. And you realize that actually what we take for granted is just not, it doesn't apply to the vast majority of people. And I remember sitting in a place, I'd had an accident, I'd torn some ligaments, so I had a leg in plaster, so I couldn't walk very far. I was sitting in this place, there was no electricity, and I thought, I can do nothing about this. I can do absolutely nothing about this. And I might as well just accept it. Because if I fight it, it's going to kill me. Psychologically, it's going to kill me. Because I'll just be angry and frustrated all the time. And it's that you just have to let go and accept and think, well, what will happen, because I have no control. And that was a really, really big thing for me to learn.
That's
That actually
fascinating.
I count for very little. I count for very, very little in this world.
It's beautiful experience to you just be in that moment and you feel like, now I want to surrender and I want to let go of control. And
Well,
that's
the
why
thing
in
is,
your art you can see that.
yeah. Well, hopefully, thank you. But I mean, in a way, I was forced into it because I couldn't do anything. But it was, I mean, before, I mean, I first went to India in 1990, so quite a long time ago. And I went because again, it was related to death. My father had died. And I was having a really, really hard time. I had to stop working. I couldn't function. And my mother at the time called it a breakdown. Physically, I just couldn't function. So maybe it was a breakdown. I don't know. But yeah, I had this thing of like, somebody said to me, "What do you want to do?" And I said, "I don't want to have to look up." And I thought, well, where can I go for that? And it was like, oh, I'll go to the Himalayas.
Wow.
Anyway, so I went with a friend initially, and then the friend left, and so I was traveling on my own. And it was the first time I'd done a long haul trip in my life. And it got to the point where I just thought, I don't need to worry because things will sort themselves out. And again, there was a time when I was just walking along a path. I was trying to find somewhere to stay the night. I hadn't found anywhere. I'd gone to this place near the Tibetan border. There was a big annual fair going on. Everything was booked. It was getting dark. Woman on my own, don't know what's happening, don't know where I am, don't speak the language. And I was thinking, oh, I don't know what I'm going to do here. And then I bumped into somebody who I'd met a couple of weeks beforehand, just randomly. And he said, "Have you got anywhere to stay?" And I said, well, maybe I said, "I haven't got anywhere to stay. Can you help?" And initially, he took me to his office, and he obviously thought, white woman, oh, that'd be easy. But it was made pretty clear that I wasn't into that kind of thing. So he actually took me to the wife of a colleague of his, and I slept on their floor that night. So I was fine. I was safe. I was with a woman and her children. We had basic conversations, which you can do with sign language and the odd word of English. And I was absolutely fine. I had a lovely time. It all sorted itself out. And the next morning I went off, and then I found somewhere, and, so it all turned out okay. And it's having that faith that it will be okay. But in a way, you have to let go of the anxiety, because I could have got so stressed out and tensed out of panics, and I wouldn't have known what to do. And maybe I'd have ended up trying to find a policeman. I have no idea what I would have done. I really don't know what I would have done. But it turned out okay. And I don't know where else I would have learned that. Or maybe it was just the timing. I don't know. But I found that in India. And that's actually one of the reasons I fell in love with the country. Although I never imagined then I'd be going back there for nearly 7 years. Yeah.
That's why I do this podcast, to people hear this experience. You have a quite interesting life, Caroline.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I have no regrets. I have no big regrets in my life. And that's another thing that I decided quite a long time ago. And again, that came from losing my father. What came from grief. I think grief and loss are actually very productive emotions. Obviously, it's not something anyone particularly enjoys going through. But for me, so much came. I learned so much I have learned so much, and I still learn from loss. I don't think it gets any easier necessarily, but I know that it's a very rich seam of emotion and experience. Yeah, and when my father died, it was that thing of, yeah, my philosophy of life became very clear. Love and self-fulfillment, those are the two things that really matter in life for me.
That's beautiful.
So
everything is love.
It is, and it's not, not to say romantic love, I mean, but love, compassion, general openness. And again, it's that giving out, and giving out means that actually you get so much back. But it is, I think, having an openness, and then it's like, life, or the energy, there is something that responds. A life force, call it what you will. I mean, I'm not religious at all, but I do believe there is a life force. You can see it. The amount of seeds that get produced by trees, the fact that things grow every spring, it's quite remarkable, really. There's that cycle of life, death, rebirth. We see it every year.
I totally agree with you.
Mm.
You have a better way to explaining it. So.
Well, I've been practicing.
If it's not okay with you, I want to talk about your workshop. I know you're the founder of Play with Drawing.
Yes.
And for our listener, you can go to carolinebanks.co.uk.
Yeah.
It's Caroline's website, and there is a section called Workshop and Groups that you can find more information there. And I know that you have workshops somewhere else, but you can give this information if you want about.
Well, probably the first port of call would be the website.
Okay.
Because then things tend to happen that people email me. It's now got to the point where I'm doing workshops for organizations, and it's interesting. I mean, I only really started doing them online in January. We're now in May, and I've actually got workshops booked till September.
Wow.
And I've been asked to do workshops for a group of psychotherapists. I've just been commissioned to do a workshop for the Royal College of Psychiatrists. So it's interesting that it's actually semi-official bodies that are, in fact, are getting to hear about this. Whereas before I was just doing it for a group of people, a group of individuals. But now, yeah, it's interesting to see where it's going, because I'm not pushing it very much at all. I haven't marketed it particularly. It's sort of been word of mouth, and also, word of mouth, people who've done it, who've then mentioned it to somebody else, who's mentioned it to somebody else, and it sort of carries on like that. And again, I'm doing circular motions because it's like snowballing, it's that rounded, that motion. I don't know where it's going to go, but I see the benefit of what it can do for people. And that brings me joy, that I can bring, calm and pleasure to people in that way, where they are actively involved in being creative themselves.
I'm smiling because when I heard that this workshop is for psychiatrists and psychologists, I felt like there is an openness to accept that they actually need, there is a need for that. And that's why I'm very happy.
Needs it. Everybody needs it. I mean, initially, because I started doing the workshops again a couple of years ago, before the pandemic, and I was just doing little groups in a local community garden. And the idea was that it was for people who some people, I didn't have a very clear idea, but I thought it was for people who thought they couldn't draw, who couldn't make a mark, they said, oh, I haven't got a creative bone in my body. People like that. That's what I was going for. And then people who had maybe done art at college, but then hadn't done anything since, or they were actually working creatively, professionally, but in quite a narrow area. And they never gave themselves permission to actually just draw for the pleasure of it, because it was, you know, they did technical drawings or they did things very much for a result. Whereas what I was advocating, and what I do advocating, is the process. And then I started looking at how the brain works with it and how the brain deals with it. And a lot of it is how so much of what we think we see is actually what our brain is telling us, rather than what we're actually seeing.
Yeah, our mind create the world.
Yeah, so it's like, I call it the backseat driver, or, you know, the little voice on the shoulder saying, you can't do this, you're no good, you're rubbish, everyone's going to be better than you, you know. Is that kind of thing. So it's basically to quieten that little voice down and say, look, you know, that's fine, but you just go and sit in a corner for a while and let me get on with things. And so it's just very simple little exercises and games that are actually just quite funny. And I did one the other day. I only do about one a month, because I don't want that to be all I do. And in fact, my main practice is creating the artwork. But it was that thing of, oh my gosh, what's she going to make us do next? What are we going to do next? We just don't know what's going to happen. And that's the point. You don't know what's going to happen.
I mean, even for you.
It catches you off guard. Well, there was something that, again, I think I just tuned in to something on Zoom. Well, obviously not just, you know, gate crashing, but I did book for something, where I thought, yeah, I'll try being the one who's doing it rather than the one who's giving it. And I think I don't give myself enough chance to play. I actually don't let myself do it. And I found, in fact, that a lot of artists, we don't give ourselves the permission to just do something for no result, because we're so busy doing stuff for something, that it's actually very difficult for us to let go. So I need to learn what I'm teaching.
It's like creating for the outcome, not just creating to be spontaneous, no judgment, just be free, and just go with it. It doesn't matter where it goes.
Just see what happens. And, you know, if it ends up in the recycling bin, that's fine. If it goes in the compost heap, that's fine. And it's really interesting, the transformation, because people say, oh yeah, gosh, I really enjoyed that, or I feel relaxed. That was actually a really nice drawing I just made. I never knew I could do that. You know, things, they surprise themselves and they enjoy it at the same time. And very often it's like, oh, I think I'll give that a go. All right, I'll just carry on doing that. I know the course is finished, but I'm just going to carry on doing that because I'm enjoying it so much. And it's in a way, it's like just, you know, taking the brakes off, or actually just letting the elastic stop being pulled so tight and just letting things relax a little bit. And it's quite liberating. But even if it's only for a few moments, there is that kind of, oh, I can do that, you know. And if they can do it with that, then there is that thing of, well, if I can do that and I didn't think I could do it, what else could I do that I think I can't do? Or how else, you know, I'd never thought of seeing it that way. Or maybe in this situation, it could be seen a different way. So I suppose in a way, that's the idea of, again, encouraging the creative thinking, or just ways of seeing things or understanding things in a slightly different way.
It's very interesting. I was thinking, you say somebody to exercise, they never say, I need to be athlete or get an Olympic medal to be able to exercise. You can go for a walk or swimming. But when it comes to art, people usually say, oh, I can't draw, or I can't paint. I'm not an artist. How can we change that belief?
Through play. That's my thing. That's my belief. There's a wonderful quote from Einstein that I found. It's like play is the highest form of research. It's how we learn. You know, why, you know, animals play, kids play. It's how we actually learn to deal with the world, how we learn to negotiate things. And at a certain age, we seem to stop doing it. I mean, that's what's so wonderful about, you know, performers, actors, because part of their practice, again, is playing. In rehearsals, they play. Artists in our studios, we play. Again, it's all creatives. You know, I don't really know what dentists do to play, but it's, you know, maybe they have something, but we all need something to get our brains, get our minds thinking in a different way, and to get our bodies moving, or just generally, negotiating the world in a slightly different way.
Yeah, I know a surgeon. He thinks when he does the surgery, he's doing art. He truly believes that, and he's amazing at it.
Yeah,
he always
it
does
is
his
an
best,
art.
and he just say, "I'm not a surgeon. I'm an artist," and I love that. He thinks that way, and he thinks he's creating something. You couldn't say create, but I don't know how he see it, but it's real to me when he says that. So
well, he is creating, actually.
Yeah.
So he's creating a different outcome for that patient. He could be, depending on what kind of surgery he's doing, he could be creating different connections, physical connections. He could be, again, he could be joining things together that have been severed.
Yeah, thank you for helping me.
Moving things apart. I don't know, but it's just, there are so many different possibilities. I mean, there's a woman I know who's she is accident and emergency doctor, and she's an artist as well. She makes things, but very much in her spare time. But she always says that, you know, when she's just there and she's stitching somebody up for something, usually a flesh wound or something, she's saying, "Oh, I'd love to make a really nice pattern out of that." You know, so rather than just literally stitching the flesh, actually making a design out of it. But I don't think the patients would necessarily be that keen. But she thinks, again, it's like, how, you know, how can I make that? How is this interesting? How can this be interesting? But she does, in a way, it's almost, she could be a tattooist with cuts, but I don't think she's ever actually put it into practice. I don't know. But can you imagine somebody like, you know, they just, I don't know, there's a flesh wound on their arm and all of a sudden they've got a palm tree or something, I don't know. But it could be quite interesting. Because my mother had major surgery when I was a teenager, and she had massive scars on her back, and she always worried about it. And I said, no, they're just so beautiful. And they were these sort of, you know, she had a long straight line, and you could still see the dots. She had the scars of the dots of the stitching. So she had one that went right up her back, and then another one that went off, curved off to one side. And I thought they were exquisite, absolutely exquisite. I mean, she never quite believed me. And they had come from, you know, terrible, terrible pain and hardship. But they were beautiful things. But there was a curve in there. Yeah.
I think both of us believe that creativity is essential to everybody's well-being. Could you a bit talk about that? Why is that?
It's what makes us human. You look back in history, and what do we remember? What traces do we have? It's culture. It's the artifacts archaeologically. A lot of it is cultural artifacts. That's how we know about civilization. A civilization is an organization of people that has moved on from just literally feeding itself and housing itself. Culture is what makes us human. And culture, creativity, making, and it's how we negotiate the world. There's always been decoration on something.
For me, it's like when I look around myself, I don't need even to go far. I see a lot of suffering. A lot of people
Yes.
are in pain. How creativity can just, I'm not saying just do something to forget about what you're feeling, because as you mentioned about your experience in India, sometimes you have to surrender or let go of control. But how we could just motivate people to get more interested? You can have just piece of paper and draw some line in it. You don't even need to take it really seriously. But how we can make people to look at art in not a scary way?
Well, I think a lot of that is down to education, but from a very young age. I mean, we are all essentially creative. Children, they will make marks, they'll draw, even if it's just drawing things in the earth and making marks on walls and things. We need to leave our mark, and it is actually, yeah, we leave our mark. However it is, it's a way of saying I am here. And I think it's so easy for, I don't have children, so I don't necessarily know the technicalities and the age stages and all that, but I think it's really important to encourage people from the youngest of ages to express themselves. And I think a lot of the time people are discouraged from expressing themselves in our societies, or just only expressing themselves in a certain way. And I think if people are allowed to have access to creativity, to art, to expose to it, and to feel included in that. I think a lot of time people just feel excluded, that it's, it's for posh people, it's not for them. What they do isn't worth anything. So I think it goes back to having a sense of self-worth as well.
That's very true. Yeah, I remember when I was a child, if I wanted to not draw a tree or house or boat, somebody would tell me, what is this drawing? Draw this. It was like a structure giving to me to what I should paint or draw. And I don't know, nowadays parents do that or school do that, but you're right.
There comes a point where you do, because I mean, with young children, it's like, oh, whatever you've made is beautiful, and it goes on the fridge or it goes in the kitchen or whatever. And then it's like, well, the sky's blue. Why have you done it like that? Or no, the sun, the sun's round and it has rays, and it doesn't. But doesn't have to. But it's, and cars have to have four wheels. Well, no, they don't. If you want to imagine a different car, a different vehicle, if you want to have, I don't know, a vehicle that's got just wheels on the roof, and it may have something else, I don't know, but I mean, there are other ways, and it's not wrong and it's not right, and it is that thing of, no, you shouldn't do that. That's what comes through, I think, after a certain stage at school. And also very often they stop doing art.
It's very true.
So it just it leaves, and it's not important. And very often it's the kids who aren't very good academically who end up in the art class.
But you see, like, even a sky is not just blue. It can be red, it can be yellow, it can be purple.
It can be anything.
But they tell you it's blue because whatever reason.
That's what we're told it is. It's that's why, I mean, in my play with drawing workshops, I say, well, draw what you see, not what you think you see, not what you think it ought to look like. Draw what it does look like.
So that's what you mean by become more observant.
Yeah, a lot of it is actually looking and really looking And again, it engages the brain in a different way. So there are exercises as well, you know, they'll draw, and it's all very like 1 minute, 2 minute exercise. I mean, it's all very quick and very, you know, you can't do highly polished work, and because you don't, I mean, I don't want them to. But what's important is getting people to look and observe and be aware. And with that, one is much more present. And also the brain can only focus really on one thing at a time. So if you're really concentrating on looking at something, you can't think about like, oh gosh, you know, my partner wants to divorce me or whatever, you know, for those few moments, nothing else exists. And that in itself is a great release.
Yeah, I wish everybody could experience that moment.
Yeah, well, it comes to workshop with me. They can.
If you want to be more observant, you can check out Caroline's website, carolinebanks.co.uk, play with drawing.
But I'm happy to just talk with, yeah, art and creativity are fundamental to us as human beings. I want to share the joy that I get and the nourishment that it gives me. I want to spread that joy.
Yeah, like if I have a good news, I want to go home and share with everybody. And if I come home and have nobody to share, it's like I feel like, oh, so I can't share my happiness. I like that. I mean, and then even you do this creative work and it feels good. I mean, once my friend, when I was really in the zone, saw me and he said, I'm very jealous. How do you do that? I said, well, it's very rare. It's not like always it happened to me, but if it happened to me, I really embrace it. And I create.
And we remember those moments.
Exactly.
And it's a high in a way. And so we want to get those back. But again, you can't have a high without a low.
That's true.
We cannot always have that. It wouldn't mean anything if we always had it. So the fact that it's quite rare, again, makes it really precious, I think. So it's the variety, which, you know, I tell myself when I'm thinking, oh, I think it's a terrible day. And I mean, you'll have that. Everybody has it. You think, oh, nothing's going wrong. It's like, well, I need these days to know how good it can be, because I'm having the, you know, it's not great. So we need to feel that flow. And again, it's the cyclical thing. Again, going back to, you know, Buddhism, nothing stays the same. Everything changes. Everything changes.
Yeah.
So if you're feeling absolutely terrible, it's not going to last forever. It can't.
It's impossible.
Yeah, it's not in the nature of life. It's not in the nature of being for things to stay the same. In the same way that you can never go back. You know, and I mean, very often in politics, the politicians and populists, they you know, there's this idea of going back. Well, we can never go back. And I don't understand why people don't understand that. You can never go back. Or you can never go back to the same thing. There's another saying, you know, you can walk into the same person. Well, a person can walk into a river at exactly the same spot after a period of time, but it's never the same river.
Yeah,
it's not the same person.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know who said it, but it is a sort of philosophical saying. Everything changes. Everything changes. So we change. And it's wonderful.
It is. If I feel like I'm not growing, then it's like life is a stop somewhere, or it's not in emotion. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, if I'm not growing, I'm not learning, I might as well be dead, really.
Yeah.
And some people do feel that they're stuck, they're not doing anything. And that's where I think there are things that we can do to help ourselves or that can be done to help people. And it's a form of creativity as well, just thinking how things can change and being open to change.
Caroline, it was a pleasure talking to you. I really had a great time.
I've enjoyed it too. Thanks, Nasreen.
Thank you.